part 2 of Amber Heard's appeal. Fuel Me Once here, driving instructor of the world. Speaking of appeals, Darrell Brooks also filed his appeal today, a handwritten form, and guess what? He does want an attorney this time. All right, back to Amber. In part 1, I gave an overview of what her arguments are. We're going to tackle those arguments right now. First argument, inconvenient forum, basically non-convenience forum in Latin. So she's arguing that the trial took place in the wrong place. Her home was California. She wrote it in California, she says, which is interesting that she admits she wrote it. Because later on in the brief, they'll say, well, she didn't really write it. It was edited by the ACLU in New York, kind of a team Zoom kind of thing, but it was published, she says, uploaded to servers in Virginia. It was actually published from the home office of the Washington Post in Virginia. That becomes the legal place of publication. Even if they want to argue that that's not the case, it actually doesn't matter where it was written. It matters where the ultimate decision to publish it was made. I could write something all day, but where does my publisher list it? They list it in their home turf, where they made all the decisions about editing and publishing. For the Washington Post, that's Virginia. And besides, for the appellate court, the location had nothing to do with the verdict. It did not change the verdict in any way. Amber says, well, it disallowed certain witnesses to travel. But the fact is that they used technology, live and recorded, to have witnesses there. So again, the location made no difference for the verdict. Second, Amber's team argues that these were her expressed opinions. They're not actionable because they're just opinions. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. There are some issues with that. These statements were made about an issue that occurred at least 2 years before that involved other people, at least one other person, Johnny Depp. The jury determined that these opinions, these statements of Amber's, were also untrue, and the facts of those opinions were defamatory. In other words, they did defame someone else intentionally. That's called with malice. So in the op-ed, she says, 2 years ago, I spoke out. What did she say? She said, I filed a TRO and I became a representative, therefore, for domestic abuse. 2 years ago, who did she file the TRO against? Johnny Depp. Those statements were about Johnny